This is the progress that we made from starting digital products to eventually hitting $1 million in sales. On the right-hand side here, I have the graph. This is a screenshot out of our Teachable account. That is the platform which we use to host our course of the different income hit in the different months. So I want to explain what's happening in this time to you. The most important thing to know is that pre this entire graph in the first place, we did audience and list building, and we were consistently blogging twice a week since January 2017. This here is in March 2018. That's when we launched our first ever course. Prior to this, it was list building and audience building and content creation. And that's what was going on that enabled this to even be like an $18,000 launch. In March of 2018, we did the first ever launch for my course, Square Secrets, where we brought in 36 students and made about 18K. So our first ever course launch was, I can't remember what our email size off the top of my head was. It's definitely over 2,000, I think under maybe 3,000 email subscribers. Over here, it was like May of 2018. That's when I set up an evergreen funnel. Now, again, that's like, again, a more advanced strategy, but that basically my like issue was, I was like, hey, I'm only launching this course like every 6 months. What if someone literally finds out about me like a week after the launch happens and they have to wait 5.5 months in order to join the course? So I was like, that's kind of a problem. So I set up something called an evergreen funnel, which allows people, if they trigger certain events on the website, to have like a very limited short period of time where they can get into the course outside the regular enrollment period. So that is what I set up in May of 2018. Then we did another launch for Square Secrets and increased what we had done the year or the 6 months prior. And then in November, this right here is November of 2018. This is when I created Square Secrets business and launched it for the very first time. So 2018 was like, it was a lot of work that year. January, February, March, I was working on creating Square Secrets and then launching that, and then launched it again. And then right after I launched that, I went into creating another course, which took me another 3 months, and then launching that. And so that launched in November 2018. Now, this is the point where we start getting into a lot of like payment plan payments, because Square Secrets business is a more expensive course. And so as things get pricier, people tend to opt for payment plans more often. This chart reflects like money that is actually gone through Teachable into our bank account, not payment plan payments. So even though it was like 60 grand this month, what we actually did in that launch was more, but what went into the bank account was less, if that makes any sense. Then we basically continued with doing a launch like every 3 months. So we had just alternated between this Square Secrets business, and we just alternated between doing those in fall of 2019. So that's like this time right here. This is when we started playing around with ads. So please take note. We were doing like hundreds of thousands of dollars of course sales before we ever touched a Facebook ad. And so I think that's very, very important for you to realize. So we tested ads and then we tested doing flash sales. So I was like, great, we make sales, but like, what if we did sales more often? What would happen then? And so it definitely like, we had some good like income months, but then we noticed that it was actually like kind of making our big sales smaller, if that makes sense. So like between, if you added up our flash sale and then our big launch that we were doing, between the two, we were getting like a good conversion and everything. But it was just kind of like we were kind of creating ourselves double the work to get like the same result. So we realized that's when we realized like, oh, okay, actually maybe doing sales as frequently is not a great thing. And that's when we realized like we're going to stick to like at max every 3 months launching something. If you're launching the same products more frequently, that I think if you have different products, maybe it could work where you're launching more frequently than every 3 months and still getting like 1 to 2% conversion rates. Then we stopped doing ads. This is November 2019 here. It was really expensive. And so we tested it for a while and then we were paying our ads manager, like, I don't know, I want to say like 5 grand a month or something, plus then a few grand on top of that for ads. And we were just like, to be honest, like this is not hugely profitable. And so we weren't a fan. So we were doing ads for, what is that, like maybe 6 months or so, and then realized like maybe not working so well. And then this is January 2020. Wasn't anything major happening, just like regular launches per usual. And then I would say this is like March. This is like pandemic hits. And then actually in like April after 2020, so this is pandemic, we realized that people were all saying like, oh, ad prices are super, super cheap because all these big businesses stopped running ads and therefore the ad price is low. So we just literally turned on our old ads, like just to see what happened. And it like went okay. So we did a little bit more ads then. And then this is May of 2020. We did our biggest launch to date. It was well over like $100,000. Again, this is like including people's first payment of a payment plan, but not their whole payment plan, if that makes sense. So it was around May 2020 where there was like $1 million deposited income. Now, we actually earned a good amount of that in months prior. But again, how do I want to say? It's kind of like a lag. It's like when we actually get paid all the money, if that makes sense. So we actually hit a million in sales like a couple months prior to actually May 2020. But then this was like when we had $1 million deposited into our bank account, if that makes sense. So that is kind of like the timeline of going from first launch to eventually $1 million in the bank. Now, the important thing to know in here is that in between all of my launches, the thing which I was spending my time on was content creation and building my email list. Because for these launches to get bigger every single time, the one key factor in that was more email subscribers. So that is pretty much what I spend my time doing in between our launches. Also, things to take home from this is that more frequent launches, when we tried doing like flash sales all the time, we realized that that was leading to lower conversions and just like, so we're basically running a sale twice to get the same result. So we went back to max launching once every 3 months. And then you'll notice like there's obviously spikes, which is when we're doing launches, but we are still definitely making income in the off months. And that is down to payment plans and evergreen sales. So that is the important information there.